Another adventure in frustration video. Just talking to the whatever you things are. I don't know what you things. I don't understand how you function at all. But anyway, I will try to communicate some way. So anyway, comments first. There's some interesting videos to deal with. But anyway, diced crab. Want to fight, question mark. And by fight, I mean engage in a war of ideas. Yeah, that would be perfectly fine. Okay, I've only got at least 5,000 videos on YouTube. 6,000 maybe. Pick any one. Start arguing. Where I will leave you in a mental coma. Yeah, that's great. Big talk, little action. You keep telling us how, I have a 12-inch dick. Yeah, I don't think you do. Turn your brain to mush through the power of my intellectual expertise. Whatever. Come at me, Gary. What? Yeah, come at you with what? You got no content. You're retarded. There, that's my first claim. You are actually a retard. IQ below like 60. Alright. Memmold. Could you make a commentary on this video about the Higgs field? It's a PBS video, so yeah, I might as well play it someday. And this is just it's just gibberish. They have no use for this stupid Higgs particle. They just need the Higgs field. To see to translate other energy through the Higgs field to move it somewhere else. Into some other field. See, something's in the electron field and they want to put it into the Higgs field, and then they can put it into the proton field. I mean, it's just such crap. Every particle has its own little field. La 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 la. Just such crap. Just made up crap. Alright. Colonist Muns, whatever that is. In the video about comments, I thought to drop a comment. I thought your overview was really good and clear, but you disparaged imagination. I don't think where I do that, but whatever. And thought in practice. I don't know where I do that. To suit your own agenda, whatever the fuck that even means. Yeah, I mean, you have a quote. What the hell does that even mean, this mush? Which seemed to be to provoke imagination and thought. Ire. What is this rubbish? The particle interactions had an astrophysical quality, since that is the introductory analogy. What are you talking about? You're just really not on the planet, are you? If electrical theory regarding vacuum potential, again, you can't even see these words, vacuum potential. You can't even say to yourself, well, yeah, if it's a real vacuum, that would be an absence. It's been vacuumed of potential. See, as you remove things, you remove potential. You remove the capacity for things to happen. If I take all the dishes off the dish rack, then the dishes could fall down and break. Constitutes the extraneous pressure you describe. I don't describe anything extraneous. Then energy would concentrate between bodies. Look, I don't want to keep arguing this, okay? It's called Mach gravity. You go look it up. It's a real physical phenomenon. I didn't invent the idea that pressure behaves this way. It behaves this way in gases. It does it in a lot of situations. You take a bunch of random energy, and then you put two things in, okay, that random energy that can absorb the momentum of that energy, and those two things will move into each other. It's just the fact of life. Any straight line force will create the phenomenon. So it's not open for debate, you asshole. Oh, fuck. You described that the energy would concentrate between bodies due to the vacuum shadow of one on the other. Barely an extension of what you said. So what's the point here again? I don't really understand. The theory goes about 500 miles past this simple premise. Okay? And the premise is rock solid physics. It's not open to debate. It's just idiotic to have to argue it. It's so purely mechanical. It's pure geometry, for fuck's sake. I thought about it a while and wondered if it could be a mechanism of field saturation. Some more just crap words. Field of what? Pinching between bodies at an even and a cosmic energy source too. So all this stuff, again, I've already explained. You either get it or you don't get it. All right? We have lots of examples of energy that we don't see. We know there's photons all around me right now that are flying into stuff. I don't see any of those, right? But I know they're hitting stuff, and I know they're heating things. So there's lots of thermal crap going on. And all this requires us just to imagine, oh, there's a whole bunch more of it that we don't see. Yeah, big deal. But it's real stuff moving with real speed, and it imposes real momentum. What's so complicated? It just merely transfers momentum. That's what happens. Stuff hits other stuff, gives it momentum, and moves it. What's so complicated? There's no evidence that it works any other way, except the fact that they keep thinking the invisible forces don't exist. They think instead there's some sort of bent geometry or some virtual thing is doing it. Fuck. Well, anyway. Oh, I gotta get rid of this pain. It's gotta be a sitting position. It's just something. I just don't know why there's such an imbalance. Oh, I'll just do this. Yeah. Shit. Alright, cosmic energy source 2, reflecting off the solar magnitude. You don't see how this kind of rhetoric is just so fucking garbage talk? A solar magnitude? What the fuck could that kind of crap mean to anybody with a brain? Why stop with forces? What the fuck are you talking about? Shit. Light riding the dielectric field. So again, you're just going to talk shit, then fuck off. I mean, there's no dielectric field. You have no evidence of one. You hear this word from, what, Ken Wheeler? Where did you get this idea that there's anything called a dielectric field? Where is it? Where's one shred of evidence for the existence of wherever the fuck that is? Being not discrete but the same thing. Whatever that is. Again, not discrete but the same thing. What does that even mean? Not real, but the same thing as the other non-real stuff I like to talk about. Making conservation of energy due to the contraction of cosmic energy. So this is just such gibberish. The cosmic energy. Boing. What does that mean? Into the dielectric field and its translation back to the planetary body. So there's just nothing here. Draw a picture of it or go fuck off and eat some grass and choke and die. I mean, this is just bullshit. Gibberish. In this model, cosmic expansion due to frequency contraction, whatever cosmic expansion is, there's no evidence of that either. There's redshift. That's all they have evidence of. Light is redshifted over distance. That's what they have evidence of. They don't have evidence that means that the stuff is actually moving. But anyway, which is due to cosmic expansion. So the contraction is due to the expansion. Oh, okay. And increasing volume potential. Some more gibberish, just volume potential. What the fuck could that mean to a rational person? How does a rational person draw a picture of volume potential, whatever the fuck, vacuum potential, whatever the fuck that could possibly mean? Dark energy won't have a physical basis. Yeah, duh. That's the whole point of it. Except it just fixes broken math. It does everything we need it to do, but is invisible. It's an invisible man solution to a problem. You want to blame something? Blame the invisible gremlins. That's all dark matter is. It's just a gremlin. It's a little magical creature that doesn't have any of the normal properties except one. It can do mischief. It's just baby talk. It allows for the observed redshifting of frequency, contracting, receding bodies. This is just all crap. Again, I'm not here to debunk your loop-de-doo bullshit. Alright? I'm competing with conventional physics, not this mush. as pyramidal gradients of energy leave behind pyramidal. Fuck you. Oh, just fuck you. How much of this shit is there? Oh, okay, almost done. If an isolated fast-moving object passes by, an observer can't tell if it's fast or his reference frame is fast in the direction hitherto unguessed. Well, yeah, they can really. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to apply any logic, but I'm betting you when a baseball player hits a home run, the earth didn't move and the ball stood still. So, you know, you can't do any kind of logical deduction, and you can't place any boundaries on what kind of is reasonable guesses even. Yeah, I think we can guess pretty fucking accurately who's moving and who's not. You fucking idiot. But if similar objects are coming in all directions, it tends to rule out the equivalency principle in that context. The equivalency principle is they should have never worried about it in the first place. Beyond just saying that, yeah, acceleration is acceleration. It's like crashing, you know, vehicle crashing is all the same. You know, whether it's two bicycles crashing into cars, two trucks, it's all a momentum argument. Pieces fly off, bones break, blah, 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 blah. But that's as far as they should have gone. There's no fucking law that somehow you can't detect who's moving and who isn't. Positive, and negative. I guess that's positive. Shared inertia, so this is more bullshit, and relative motion. Phase electric and phase magnetic. So just more crap words. What the fuck does that mean to, again, a rational person? Phase magnetic. What the fuck could that possibly mean? There is no positive or negative charge. Well, then you're an idiot. I mean, a colossal idiot. There's only about, what, 9,000 experiments demonstrating that electrons and protons have charge. Only about 9,000. No fantasy or fudgely, whatever that is. Relative motion constructively phases, more just gibberish talk, and shared inertia destructively phase shifts. What the fuck could this crap be? And he doesn't capitalize anything. I realize how that sounds. No, you really don't. If you realized how it sounds, you would say, I'm not going to type that, because I'm going to sound like a fucking lunatic. But it isn't circular reasoning. Yeah, no, it's fucking eating dog shit reasoning. I, like everyone, am trapped in a cage of whatever this is, pluses and minuses. So I enjoy your presentations and appreciate your argumentation and how you tear up shit posters. Well, then you should have appreciated this reply, because this is just all fucking garbage. You don't have a real concept anywhere in here. I mean, the real world really is made of things that, I can throw that and it bounces, it does certain things, and they're all calculable, mechanical things that happen. There's no magic. It doesn't meow. It doesn't moo like a cow. It does certain limited things. Everything has limited potential, very definable potential based on the properties of the things that are interacting. And there's none of this fucking whatever, this gobbledygook concepts of your frickin' what's the stupid dielectric field. What the fuck is that? All right. Alexei or Adrian, I don't know. Hello, hope you're doing well this current with your. I want to know, what is your feedback about what quantum mechanics claims about the phenomenon of non-locality? Well, I've already been over this crap, but whatever. About their claim that quantum entanglement has a rate of success of 85%. Well, you're not getting it. They're doing an experiment that where they expect a result that's a certain percentage, like 75%. And if they get a percentage of 85%, it indicates that something magical must be happening. So therefore, a quantum entanglement must exist. So they expect a 1/4 result. They're not getting a 1/4 result. So that's their line for saying it's impossible that could just be an aberrant, that it came out that way. It must be, that it has to be caused by some magical unknown thing. When of course it could be caused by any number of variables that we're unaware of, any number of circumstances that we don't know exactly how the physics works. So clearly it's just idiotic to assume that you can know that there can't be a mechanical explanation. That's just retarded. Of course there can be. And again, it has to do with their premises going in. They don't even understand how polarization filters work, and yet they're making assumptions. Okay, all these experiments rely on polarization of light. Okay, they don't know what polarization is, and they certainly don't know how the filters separate between the two polarizations, and yet they're drawing conclusions about reality based on experiments. They don't even understand what's happening in the experiment. I mean, it's just bullshit. If I missed the video of you talking about this subject, please point me to it, and please don't curse and call me names, because I am here to learn new things. Well, whatever. Your purposes aren't necessarily my purposes. So what do I want to say to this? Yeah, no, it's not like it's not a valid subject. I'm just saying that the whole entanglement thing, you almost can't disprove it, because they're basically making God claims. You know, and I can't disprove the existence of their dumb explanation. All I can offer is you don't have enough information to draw conclusions. And the very fact that they have to do such strangled experiments, I mean, they're really strangled, very complex. Lots of black boxes, presumptions about, okay, we created two photons that were instantaneously created at the same time, and they somehow have something called an opposite spin or some other kind of bullshit, when really what they're talking about is polarization. I mean, it's full of all kinds of assumptions. So, I mean, what is there to dissect? They're the ones with the extraordinary claim, and they're not really coming to the table with even ordinary evidence. They're coming up to the table with, well, it's, you know, the probability law says, when there's no law, there's no probability law. There's just their lack of imagination. Okay, please excuse me if my former comments I gave you the impression that I want to criticize you, but it wasn't my intention. Fine, and if I have indicated that I intend to bludgeon you or harm you in some way, that's not my intent either. It's just that, again, my agenda just isn't necessarily your agenda. My agenda is to argue that conventional physics is made up, silly, insanely weakly evidence, that their assertions about how the universe works are they have jumped way beyond their evidence. They talk as if they know something when they just have a tiniest, oh, it seems, oh, it looks a little bit like. They have nothing. Alright, bending space works mathematically in 3D and 4D, or however many dimensions you want. So you can say crap like that, but it's absolute nonsense. There's no mechanical model of a fourth dimension. It can't, you know, all you can do is make some kind of crude synthesis, but there's no actual way to do it. They simply don't illustrate it the way as it is hard to visualize bent or curved 3D and pretty much impossible to visualize in 4D. Well, it's not even so much visualizing. You can't account for the movement of anything because you have no structure to that dimension. So you have to just make it up. You make up some silly rule that anything that goes in this dimension, you know, spins around 3 times, wishes it could go home, and then starts crying. You just make up a story. There's no reality to it. So you're just wrong. And the way they mechanically teach the subject, as I've pointed out, the most renowned experts on the subject teach. Okay, when they teach the subject, they don't teach bent geometry. They teach fluid dynamics. They teach that there's essentially an ether being pulled into the center of every material body in all spherical directions, and that it's dragging matter with it. And that's how they teach the subject. They don't teach any bent geometry. So it's like when talking about whether the universe is curved or flat. Well, that's another irrelevant subject. I mean, irrelevant based on just silly notions that they somehow know how much, that, you know, they've invented dark energy, created fake expansion, you know, and they don't even understand how galaxies work. They think galaxies are supposed to be solar systems. All right, it's like when talking about whether the universe is curved or flat. It seemed to be flat. Fuck you, Lawrence. See, Lawrence Krauss. Fuck you again. But in 3D, whatever. If magnetism is caused by the same force as gravity, everything, all the forces are the same stuff. All the stuff moving the speed of light, it's exactly the same thing. It either has a frequency or it has no frequency, but it's all the same stuff, and just like the electron and the proton, it's charged. That is, it has the capacity to make electrons and protons look like they're charged. So there's a force that repels electrons, that gives electrons momentum, and there's a force that gives protons momentum. And those two forces are in a 50-50 mix in the universe. And when you filter them through a magnet, that is, segregate all the proton force coming out one end and all the electron force coming out the other end, then you have something that creates a magnetic dipole, and it perfectly fits what we see magnets do, which is attract and repel. Shit. Alright, if magnetism is caused by the same force as gravity, yes. Basically just filter to gravity, yes. Wouldn't that mean magnetism is about half the strength of gravity? No, it would mean exactly the opposite, that it's incredibly magnified, because now you're not mixing repulsion and attraction. The two, the electron won't see and the proton won't see, come to me, go away from me at the same time. So if you segregate the force, it's all come to me or all get the fuck away from me. So it obviously magnifies the force substantially. Alright. In your model, or at least directly proportional. So half the strength of gravity. So again, gravity's polarization doesn't have anything to do with gravity because the force is mixed. Get it? The force is mixed. Gravity, the Earth isn't a huge magnet. The Sun isn't a huge magnet. So nothing's getting filtered by to any great extent. Just a tiny bit of filtering. So the force that goes through the Earth and the force that goes through the Sun doesn't get changed very much. All it does is a certain percentage of it gets absorbed by the Earth and gets absorbed by the Sun, heads right for its center of gravity, creates a bunch of heat, and that energy doesn't go where it was going. And if the energy doesn't go where it was going, then the thing it doesn't hit says, hey, there's low pressure, and I move into low pressure. Then it absorbs some energy to move. And so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. Dumb fuckers. Alright. How do you account for gravitational strength being the inverse square of the distance, while magnetic strength is the inverse cube? Well, I've been over this 6,000 times. Obviously a dipole, okay, if I just did this in the last video, so I don't know how you people miss this stuff. But anyway, if I have a negative charged object and a positive charged object, and I have them at a distance, they're far away from each other, then the force is all blue coming out of here and it's all red coming out of here. So this one's saying I'm repelled to the protons, and this one's saying I'm repelled to electrons, and vice versa. Okay? Now if I put them next to each other, as magnets are, well, now I'm sending out a mixed field. Okay? And especially from a distance. So a magnet from a distance, you can see that the red's going to mix over here and the blue's going to mix over here, and you're going to end up with a very mixed field, not a segregated field. So unless you're on this side of the magnet or on this side of the magnet, yeah, it's going to be, you know, the cube in terms of the force getting weaker and weaker. It's going to get weak very rapidly because it's mixing very rapidly. Okay. All right, Robert Ritchie. All right, so this is sort of, maybe I'll play some of his video, or at least read some of it. Because we still fundamentally aren't visualizing this anywhere near the same. No, I'm not calling photons waves. It doesn't matter. You're calling them some kind of silly crap in a field, okay? I don't know how that's not a wave. Whatever some dopey field is doing, all right, whether you're compressing the field or expanding the field, whatever you're doing to the field, in my opinion, that's the same as a wave. It's not a thing. It's a perturbation in a field. And again, I'd say a field of what? A field made by what? It just doesn't. There's no need for these damn empty fields just waiting for something to squish them. Again, they're just so redundant. I mean, you ether people, do you really? I mean, like I say, if I made it out of dominoes, you do understand that the dominoes would still have to move, right? So one thing hits something and it has to move to get to someplace else. Well, why is this movement okay and just moving the whole distance not okay? I mean, what do I need the stupid medium for? All right, I think we agree that photons are quantized packets of energy. Yeah, we don't understand what that really means, though. Because by packets, I'm pretty much saying, yeah, they're clumps. They're particles. They're clumps. And they're clumps that literally stick to electrons. The electron actually absorbs the particle. It sticks to it, and now it's stuck with the momentum. The wave is caused by the frequency of the photon. So again, why would a frequency cause a wave? So what's the point of this? If I shoot bullets, you don't say the bullets have waves. If I send a space shuttle, every 10 minutes into space, you wouldn't say, oh, look, there's a wave of space shuttles going through space. You really wouldn't. Okay. Photons travel in straight lines. Well, there we agree on that until affected or absorbed. Well, they can't be affected, so they have to hit something. That's it. There's no affecting a photon. You either absorb it or you reflect it. Well, the reflection is an absorption. It's an exchange. You're exchanging photon going this way for photon going that way. Oh, damn. The wave function, which is just made up junk language, okay? There is no such frickin' thing. Only describes the electric and magnetic functions. There are none. There's no electric function for a photon, and there's certainly no magnetic function for a photon. So why are you using these terms? Why are you accepting their idiotic declaration that this photon has something to do with electric and magnetic when a photon can't be affected by either one? The photon is the force. The photon doesn't make the force. And magnetic functions relative to time. Again, just crap. Now that I have found that all EM waves are the products of different photons, I can mathematically model the shape of the photon. Well, I don't think you can have any hope of modeling the shape of a photon, so there's no evidence that's going to give you that kind of information. So I don't think you have any chance of understanding it. And clearly you really don't understand it because you think there's such a thing as a wave function. Photons hit electrons. That's all they do. And they hit them quite reliably. This will be modeled using 3 different inputs, and these are time. Again, I don't know how time is terribly relevant. Time only means something to what the photon hits. An electron is a time-sensitive object because it's the thing in tension in an atom, and it matters how far it moves in a certain period of time. Alright, the electric field, there is no field. And the magnetic field. Show me a piece of evidence of these fields. Show me one experiment that shows there's a field somewhere. That just sits there waiting for a photon to fly through it. Or a magneton, or whatever the fuck you think this shit is. Show me. All there are force. Something can excrete force. That's it. It's either excreting a force or it's not excreting a force. And the force either repels electrons or it attracts electrons, in the sense that it's either invisible to an electron or it gives the electron momentum. But those are the only two choices. Alright, superior mind. Holistic, question mark? Yeah, that's how you were talking, so, you know, no offense, but yeah. Broccoli and shit? yeah, that's holistic. Curing your back with broccoli? Yeah, that's exactly what the guy said. You want me to reread the comment? It was not known what was wrong with your back. Well, I'm just saying 99 out of 100 back problems are not some kind of stupid, oh, I have a little bit of a muscle strain. Anyway, it was assumed inflammation was a component. Well, I don't know. I don't think that's a rational assumption. But okay, fine, whatever. It was about reducing inflammation. Fine, whatever. Which is far from magical. Fine, whatever. I don't even think broccoli does that anyway. I think you'd be better off with heat and cold and all that kind of crap and taking some regular aspirin. I've studied endocrine biological mechanisms for years, and I've been a major force against snake oils. Fine. I'm just saying there is an awful lot of people out there who think you can cure shit with like eating a grapefruit or something. It's just kind of silly. I understand better than most how many things can go wrong in the body and that solutions are complex. Fine. I'm just saying, you want me to reread the comment? I'm just saying the comment was just, you know, oh, you should eat more broccoli. It was just silly. I mean, first the assumption that I already don't eat enough broccoli was, you know, that built-in assumption was kind of silly. But anyway, carcinogens in broccoli, you know. Anyway, the name of some other kind of slope thing in the hay needle analogy is asymptotic, pronounced asymptotic. Well, it doesn't matter how it's pronounced. Who cares? I think the point was made that there's these curves, and they're all kind of arbitrary and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, I don't know if I was saying they were arbitrary. And there's clearly, there would be this tendency that, yes, just replacing a needle with a haystack on every iteration, okay, eventually will get you to all needles or all hay. It won't create permanent infinities, but clearly it would have a probabilistic curve that would be not a linear straight line. It would be some kind of bent line. Maybe people gravitate towards simple health theories due to the lack of options. No health cures over here, and you get pushed into a place that has weak health treatments. Yeah, everybody wants something they can't have, and if they got what they wanted, it wouldn't work anyway, obviously, because then they would just, you know, live forever and not clean up any of their messes. No one has Borg nanoprobes to fix bad joints, so you use weak treatments that prevent more inflammation. Again, I'm not arguing against them. I'm just saying that the way it was stated, it was almost, you know, it was almost like, well, just pray harder. You know, it just trivialized things. So this is called The Observer. Yeah, right. Ignorant man. Yeah, fuck you. If you want to debunk, then please come with some arguments. Yeah, I played the man's video and I pointed out, and that sounds like religion to me. Coming with clips without context is knit the way. Is knit the way? Oh, so it's not the way to actually... I didn't do that, liar. Okay, so I didn't come with clips. I didn't quote mine. I played his fucking video, you liar. Something they don't have the balls to do. I have been watching tons of material and connected with my years of research on history, religion, science. Well, then you've been researching the wrong shit, asshole. History's mostly lies. Religion is mostly retarded. And I don't think you know much science. and more it makes a lot more sense than mainstream science does to me. So it makes sense to you that Venus about 4,000 years ago flew by the Earth and then jumped back into its orbit and just said, I'm minding my own business. I didn't do anything. Yeah, I wasn't causing any trouble. I mean, it's just ludicrous. The moon is covered with goddamn lightning bolt impacts. It's just fucking garbage. So you're convinced it's because you're an idiot. Or a religious kook. I'm interested in a fair discussion, but haven't seen any anywhere. Well, I don't think you know what a fair discussion is. The fair discussion is where you actually present some kind of thing like a rational piece of evidence. You don't just make claims and say, yeah, because I can invent a notion. I mean, I could say the sun left the solar system for 5 minutes, 5,000 years ago. It just said, fuck you, I'm leaving. And then it came back because it didn't know where to go. And that made the earth go all funny and we got a big flood. I can make up any kind of crap. It's crap. The same tactics were used as they did in the 50s with Velinsky. Velinsky didn't, he had no tactics against him. So again, you're such deluded fakers. The whole point was the real scientists hated that the publishers were publishing a bunch of books by a fucking pseudo-scientist talking absolute shit. And they were publishing like they were science books. Like this asshole knew something about physics. When all he was a creationist, alright, trying to write God into science. Nobody censored this asshole. The fucking scientists just rationally protested that publishers shouldn't be publishing books, calling them science books, calling them non-fiction, when they're fucking goddamn bullshit. You asshole liar. Anyway. Bright insight videos are essentially 10 minutes of baseless theories and rambling about evil mainstream science. Well, whatever. It's not a very useful comment. I have heard some of your theory regarding force bits and have no problem with that. We seem to have a problem with it in the sense that you're talking a completely different kind of theory, right? I mean, there's no point in me saying force bit. Force bit doesn't need no frickin' field anywhere. Force bit doesn't vibrate anything else. Force bits aren't doing something else. Force bits are going from point A to point B. All right? They're not doing anything else. My point is I need to hear all of your theory to be able to argue for or against it. Well, I can't shove it in your head, so I'm just saying there's plenty of videos. The start here ones, the overview ones, tend to make the basic points. I am not interested in the prize money. I don't know what that even means, as I am seeking logical explanations to real-world events I have experienced. Yes, well, likewise, I'm not really seeking the explanations anymore because I think I have them. So I have the answers. So, but whatever. The most ridiculous explanation I see for faster than light travel is when they fold a piece of paper and say how they are going to fold the universe. Well, they don't think they're going to do it. Some wormhole's going to do it for them. But quite obviously, yes, it's just made up. It's, you know, anybody can make up any kind of crap. And, you know, there's lots of origami you can play with paper. So clearly if I decide the universe is a piece of paper, well, I can fold the universe into a duck, and I can fold the universe into a lot of things, and, you know, but was I right in the first place to say the universe was a piece of paper, or was that just bullshit? Right? So it starts with bad notions, and again, you've allowed them to seed your brain with some notion that there's some electric field and that there's some magnetic field that sits around doing nothing until some sort of virtual photon, you know, not a real one, flies through it or something. I mean, clearly just vacuous mush, clearly not really a rational description of anything real. I mean, they're calling it a virtual photon, for fuck's sake. And do any of them explain why magnets attract and repel? Does anybody have a rational theory for that except me? No, I don't think so. Interestingly on subject is your avatar, as the 3 rings would perfectly describe a stationary photon. Well, it's just I did it 7 years ago, so it clearly if I was to do a new icon, I probably wouldn't bother messing with those notions, because they're completely superfluous. There is no need for any complexity to any of this stuff. This stuff is dirt simple. It really is as simple as black force, red force, black matter, red matter, and they're little simple rules. You know, black matter bounces off of black matter, red force bounces off red matter, and then in the case of black matter hitting red matter, it leaves perpendicularly through two interactions with other bits that go into the stuff, so I won't get into that. But the idea is it doesn't impose momentum. So one interaction gives the electron momentum. When black stuff hits an electron, it gives it momentum. When red stuff hits it, it doesn't give it momentum. Simple rules. You don't need any. No, we just don't need any of these swirly stuff, magical stuff. You can all be reduced to sticks and stones. Alright, typographical error. Well, you don't have to worry about those. I'm not going to be paying any attention to error, those minor bits of nothing. Kinetics is simple. This is Jim Marcus. Kinetics is simpler, more rudimentary than get bent space and quantum nonsense. Yes. How can a particle be in two places at once? Well, how can it? Yes. You know. Well, obviously, you know. I mean, that's part of their confusion strategy, because they're really not saying it's in two places at once. It just might be here, or it might be here, depending on what its entangled brother in the multiverse does. Anyway, two places at once interfere with itself. Yes, interfering with yourself is just absolute crap. It'd be laughable if it wasn't the dogma of choice of the cultish mainstream scientism. It is clear that if Newton had said it, he would have been degraded as a scientist. Clearly, scientists in the past couldn't get away with a wacky explanation like that. Just, no, there's no way. They would have, you know, people would have said, prove it, show me. All right, physics was socially engineered by the Nazi Party. Well, this is just totally unnecessary rubbish. They invented the atom bomb hoax. I don't know what hoax you're talking about, which was carried on by the fascist-controlled U.S. secret government. So you're obviously insane. So it's unfortunate that you are capable of understanding some other people are insane, but frankly, you're just as crazy. I don't know what this is a picture of. It looks like Saddam Hussein. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not. So maybe this guy really is a whack job. No content. So, yeah, anonymous insane person. Great. Yeah, too bad. Alright, let's see if there's anything new, and then we'll move on to other things. Okay. So, yeah, so I don't know if I want to get to all three of these videos now, but, well, I could take a little break. Oh, did I ever start this video? I don't even know if I started it. That'd be hilarious if I didn't start the video. Let's see if I pause it, then I'll know if I started it. Alright, should be back. So, let's look at a couple of these videos. So this is the new Robert Ritchie video, right? That's his name? I think so. Yeah. Alright, so he says a photon is neither a wave or a particle. So, you know, obviously I'm voting particle in every real respect. It's the most fundamental particle you can get. It has this simple idea that it moves the speed of light. So that's the only thing that, you know, you have to imagine, is that it moves the speed of light, and all you can do is convert it. That is, you can, through the process of hitting a piece of matter, you can exchange this for another one of these, another cap, going the speed of light. Right now, if you want to think that this stuff has some sort of ether field, then there'd be just one field. All right, not a magnetic field, not an electric field, not all these complex fields. It'd just be one. And the only thing in the field would be this stuff, and this stuff moves as a compression, if that's what you want to make it, a vibration, in these dead straight lines. Now the problem with making an ether is that you run into geometric problems where you run out of straight lines. You know, you end up with the diagonal problem on a checkerboard. The diagonals end up longer than the other directions. It's not circular enough. And everything gets compressed coming into something. So it's just so much easier just to say, no, they're just bits. And they move the speed of light in a straight line. They don't need an ether to get through anything. They just move. That's what they do. Period. They don't do anything else. And so all you can do is exchange them. So there's this thing called an electron or a proton, some other elemental matter bit. And a little bit of momentum hits it and it sticks to it. And it moves. Now this thing moves as if it absorbed it, like a fish. Contains it. Or it can hit it and release another piece. You know, and that's how it works. It exchanges. The thing had one piece going this way, and then when you hit it, the piece going this way gets loose, and so now you go this way equal to two of these, because not only did you get one opposing, you get rid of one opposing it, you're adding one. You know, it's just a momentum exchange. This has momentum. It's in every way particle-ish. Doesn't have any, doesn't do any size changing, doesn't doesn't jellyfish, doesn't do anything fancy. It's just a discrete piece of momentum that travels from one point to another point, and it imposes momentum. All right. It's a traveling quanta of electromagnetic energy. So again, it's just electromagnetic energy. Again, I can't tell people, look, they just invented the idea of squashing magnetism and electricity together. Just not recognizing that electricity is created by monopoles, charge, and magnetism is dipoles, things close together. So charge are independent things. A negative without a positive stuck to it, a positive without a negative stuck to it. And magnetism is when the dipoles, and the dipoles are stacked, making a bigger magnet. They're not two separate things. Brief explanation. A photon is a lossless packet of energy. Yes, it's indestructible. And all you can do is absorb it, that is, keep it, put it in your pocket, and then give it back. And when you catch it, it's going the speed of light. You catch it with a catcher's glove, speed of light. And when you let go, it goes the speed of light. That's it. And while you hold it, it goes the speed of light spread over your entire mass. So obviously you don't go quite the speed of light. So when I catch a photon, I have to multiply the momentum of the photon. I have to divide it by my entire mass. Okay, which means I won't go anywhere near the speed of light. All right. That has both electric and magnetic values. Okay, so there's no such values. There's no evidence of any such values. They just don't exist. But photons clearly are the force. So if I make a magnet, what's a magnet doing? A magnet is taking momentum, force bits, and it's moving them, migrating them through the magnet. And what it ends up doing is taking the force bits that are electron sensitive and sending them one direction, and the ones that are proton sensitive and sending them another direction. That's all it's doing, because this radiates red, this reflects red and radiates red, and this one reflects and radiates blue. And that's what they do. That's how a charge works. So when if a red bit of energy comes into an electron, whatever way it's coming in, it goes out perpendicular. So anything that was expecting it to hit isn't going to get hit by it because it's going the wrong way. And that's what we call the electric field. It's merely the fact that the energy has been changed in its direction. through the interaction. But the point would be is that there's no reflection. You can't reflect red energy off of an electron, ever. So no, there'll be no bouncing back and forth or any of that stuff, so no high pressure. I mean, reflection is a key function between two bodies in the universe. What makes two things coming towards each other in the universe interesting is the fact that you do have these reflections that take place. And the very fact that when they're mixed, that is, they have both electrons and protons, then there will be an equal amount of energy not reflected as there is reflected. And so therefore, the repulsive force between the two things will make it negated. Oh, Jesus, my back. Anyway, all right. Both electric and magnetic values that change in relationship to frequency. So there's no, the frequency has has to do with the distance between them. There's no changing of the photon's identity. Photons are all electron energy because they only affect electrons clearly. I think quite clearly. The evidence would surely indicate. And that's it. There's no other functions. It's just bits of energy moving the speed of light in a straight line, and it just doesn't have any other property except being red or black, north or south, plus or minus energy. Okay, considerations. A photon as an energy value quanta. It has momentum. So he's going to say that it doesn't have mass, which, you know, in my opinion, is just wrong. Clearly, to impose momentum, let's see how far we have to go to get more text. It has to have mass of some kind. You can't hit something with nothing and have it move it. Clearly, photons move electrons. Clearly, they create heat. Clearly, they cause agitation. Clearly, they do all that stuff. It's just silly to say they're massless, in my opinion. Just makes no sense. How can something with no mass have an impact on something else? Just doesn't make any sense. But they don't really understand what mass is. Mass is charge. It's the electrons and the protons that create the illusion of mass. I'd argue the particles themselves, independent of the force they collect, have no mass. They have no momentum. The force gives them momentum. And their momentum is what you're measuring when you're measuring or weighing them. When you're weighing something, you're measuring its momentum. Why isn't this loading? For fuck's sake.
Good idea. Pictures.
Alright. Alright. The magnetic field rotates along the x-axis, so he's doing just more of this stuff. There's no spin. Just forget it. There's just no reason to believe any of this stuff. The electric field is polarized in the y-axis. So this way and this way, some kind of what? It doesn't mean anything. A photon is free space. A photon in free space moves in one direction along the z-axis. Yeah, but clearly you've given it all these properties. So to say it moves in one direction when it's also swirling and spinning in two other fields or something, you sort of lose the simplicity. Mathematical graphs are us to present graphical values of calculated properties of the photon. These calculated properties, all this stuff has already been done. I don't think you're going to recalculate thermodynamics. So I don't see much point in it. The pressure voltage changes in sinusoidal values related to the number of degrees of magnetic rotation. So again, there's no pressure change. Photons are photons are photons. The only thing the frequency means is that clearly frequency, because of the condition of substances, they're resident. So it's like how fast you could throw something at a piece of glass, and break it versus not break it. You can sort of understand that you can tap something at a certain frequency and it'll break, a certain other frequency it won't. That's all frequency means in these equations, really, is how vulnerable is the thing you're shooting the frequency at. Does it reflect the frequency that high, or does it absorb frequency that high? That's all it's really frequency decides. But clearly higher frequencies means you can compress more energy in a smaller space. So duh. More bullets. You fire them quicker. God, I still can't find a sitting position. I need something. Yeah, I'll go see if I can find something to fix this. I have it balanced, but yeah, one side of me is just so fucked up. Alright, I guess I'm back. It's very complicated here. I don't think what I did is working. Anyway, yeah, so it's probably enough on this video anyway. Yeah, so all this field stuff, the whole, there's got to be some way to get to a more rudimentary understanding of what photons do and the tiny bit of evidence for any of this wave crap. So again, we're just talking about experiments where photons are interfering with material objects, and they have some strange behavior when they directly interfere. They're directly in proximity to matter, and clearly matter that can be excreting electrons that could be interfering with the photons. So you don't need all this wave mechanics. It's not the real world for photons. 99% of their life doesn't have anything to do with that crap. It doesn't matter. I can say that over and over again. People just don't get it. Alright, so this DeCinti guy made a video on the polarizer paradox. And this video, I had some respect for this guy in the past, but now he's just, forget it. He's an asshole. I mean, he spends 33 minutes and he doesn't say a damn thing about how polarizing film works. So he does a statistical analysis, comes up with some sort of chart, wavy line. There, I figured it out. What did you figure out? Yeah, we know what the results are. The point is, why are those results? So anyway, he has this premise here in the beginning of the video where he says conventional physics says only 1 in 180 degrees of polarization goes through the filter, when clearly physicists know that half the light goes through the filter. So they know that anything in this 90 degrees and this 90 degrees, okay, the bottom square, the top square, go through the filter. And it's these two that don't. The ones going this way, this way, this way. 45 degrees down, 45 degrees up. Those two angles on those two sides don't get through. So they already know it's 50-50. So this is just such a straw man. This is just bullshit to sit there and say they think this. They don't think that. So why are you pretending that's their argument? Alright, and so as I pointed out, there's no paradox if you just recognize that the filter isn't just a filter, that it's also affecting the photons. It's changing them. So when they pass through one filter, they're fixed, they're improved in their angle. So then when they get to the next filter, they're not as, instead of being 45 to 45, they're only 22 to 22 degrees out of alignment. So they've been improved in their polarization. So when you put a filter in between, you're able to get the improvement to bend to a new improvement in one direction or the other direction. So you can get that 22 to 22 to go from 0 to 45. So you can bend the light to the 45 degree side, and that way it'll go through the third filter because now you've bent the light, so now it can be caught in the 90 degrees going this way. It's not very complicated, but it's clearly simply explained. And the more filters you add incrementally, the more you'll improve how much light you recapture in the end. And that's the experiment you should have done, is adding more and more filters. But anyway, there's just no explanation. He just claims he's going to give an explanation. And he says, "Oh, the Patreon people can have the explanation," or some crap. It was just 33 minutes of just talk. There just wasn't, and false premises. But there wasn't any. Like I said, he somehow thinks this chart explains why the third filter allows more light to pass, when it doesn't do any of that. I mean, the way he's statistically rotating the filters are deciding these humps. There's nothing he's choosing, and he has like two filters going the same way, and the third one being off. Like, what's the point of that? Obviously, the two filters going the same way can't possibly mean anything. So, well, anyway, there's no point. It can't mean much. So, so I guess I don't need to really play it. It's just a piece of garbage. Disappointing. Alright, and the other conversation was this from January 19th. So that John Chappelle thing, they did a discussion on electromagnetic topics. And, basically what is these fields and stuff. And so it was sort of interesting. But these people are just obnoxious. And the Franklin Hu guy, like I said, it seems pretty reasonable. He's wrong, but he seems reasonable. But some of these other people are just crazy, and especially this, whatever, the Henry guy. Harry. Yeah, Harry. And it's funny that he keeps asking for people's credentials. Like, well, I keep wanting to know his. What's your motivation, Harry? Are you a religious kook? I mean, just, because he seems to be supporting the religious kooks theory. And it's so vacuous in the sense that they basically are just going to say God made photons. They'll just find the elemental particle and call it a God particle and not account for any reason why it does whatever it does. It just does it because God said so. So there's no mechanics necessary because God's controlling it. And apparently that's the theory. That somehow the magnetic field is God's field, and he warps the magnetic field and makes everything happen. Some kind of crap like that. But it's crap. So, so I don't know if I need to play. I mean, I really want to play some of this, so maybe I'll come back to this. But there are other videos I want to do stuff with, so we'll see what happens. And sorry, I gotta find maybe later. I'll find a better way to sit. I'm just getting this. Just a real nasty pain. I have to take something for it, I guess. It's not in my spine pain. The spine pain is one problem. This is like some sort of kind of muscly thing. Way over to the side. Anyway, till next time. It's probably just because I've been walking funny, so I've ruined all the muscles. Anyway, till the next time, such. No medical advice necessary. Thank you.